Yo, what's up? Someone that's no one, and welcome back to another story mix. Today we got stories on ibogaine or iboga. This is a plant natural to Africa, and it's one of the weirdest ones out there. Just being that it has effects, opiate-like effects, psychedelic-like effects, dissociative-like effects, all in one experience. And not only that, it's very notable because apparently it can eliminate opioid withdrawals and possibly other withdrawals like alcoholic. It's a substance that has seen a lot of treatment for this reason, but at the same time, it's also a tripping experience, one that lasts possibly days. There's a lot to it, we'll just say. And the reports we covered, we got a handful we covered over time. Some of microdoses, some of heavier doses. They can vary significantly, especially if it is you're consuming the plant or if you're consuming a synthetic or an extract in ibogaine. Whatever it may be, there's a lot of mystery to this substance, a lot to be figured out, a lot to be applied, I feel like, in the medical world still. It is used in some countries, but not too many, and it's not standardized like that by any means. But these reports will give you an idea of what iboga could be like, and just some of the potential with this medicine. So with that, I'm sure you'll enjoy these reports. They are very trippy in a sense, you'll just see. So without further ado, let's dive right into this. Life is much better. I would like to explain the iboga experience after actually experiencing it myself. I don't exactly know where to start, but I suppose I will start from the beginning. I went to my girlfriend's on a Friday night, and to be honest, I was pretty apprehensive about doing it, but I had already decided that it was going to be a big thing for me. I was really hungry, as there was no eating before the iboga trip, and also no water a certain amount of time before. I was also nervous and very thirsty, which is not exactly a good combination. However, I think the most important thing to point out is that iboga is not a drug, and I will explain later why I think that. I started with a tester dose, which was 2 tablets that both had about a half gram in each tablet. We sat and watched The Simpsons, and my paranoia seemed to really calm down, and I was okay. There were no weird occurrences till about an hour later when my girlfriend shouted to me from the kitchen. Her voice echoed like we were in a cave. I suppose it was then that I knew things were getting different. I then proceeded up to my bed, where it was all set up cold turkey style. There was a mattress, a cover, some toilet rolls, and a bucket. I sat there for a minute and then took my dose. I think there were about 6 tablets to take, so that upped my dose to 8 tablets in all, which in total was 4 grams of iboga root bark. It was about 10 minutes after that I suddenly had a big bout of paranoia again. I remember thinking if I could force myself to be sick, then I might avoid this whole thing. Reasoning prevailed, and I just sat there and thought about all the crappy experiences that I've had with drugs. It must have been about an hour and a half before anything happened. And then, fucking hell, did something happen. The first thing that I noticed was my body was starting to feel incredibly heavy, almost like being very drunk, but without the crappy feeling that comes with it. To be honest, I really enjoyed the feeling, but I can see how it can be a bit heavy for some people. I laid back and looked around. Nothing much seemed to be happening as far as visuals went. Granted, I only had a dim light on. My girlfriend suggested that I turn the lights off and shut my eyes. Then, that's when it really started. After shutting my eyes, the first thing I remember seeing was my own eyes in front of me. It was very strange, and I felt super dissociated. It was like looking in on my own brain, except it was represented by this massive green neon matrix type thing. It seemed to be sectioned off into different folders, almost like some kind of computer system. The vision scene started. I would start going towards a different folder at what seemed like light speed, and then visions would hit me at 100 miles an hour. It was quite intense at first, and a lot to take in. It wasn't only closed eye visuals either. The neon experience was all around me. I could see The Virtue in Man by Leonardo da Vinci, and also visions of men shooting discs from a big cannon, all which were neon. It was the closed eye visuals that were the most intense, however. I saw myself among a big gang of Asian youths fighting against the police. I had a conversation with a man named Jamal who was fighting for a cause he didn't believe in. Everything seemed to have relevance and importance, and I just had to try and sort it out in my head, which was super difficult at the time due to everything being very mixed up and all over the place. The main vision that made the difference was seeing flashbacks of myself as a young school child during a fight I had with another very popular child at the school. I remember everyone turning on me and chasing me across the field. I bumped into two so called friends at the time who also rejected me. I remember feeling so upset and so angry at the rejection that since then, I have tried so hard to be friends with everyone, often with people I didn't like. I just wanted to feel wanted. This felt resolved after seeing it, and I seemed to feel better. Then came the big one. I started to see myself, but from another person's point of view. It was almost like looking at a perfect doppelganger of myself. One minute, he was walking alongside me, and the next, he was attacked and beaten before eventually being murdered. I saw many different visions of the so called me being beaten, shot, hung, stabbed, electrocuted, and every other type of execution you can think of. This to me signified the murder of the old me and the birth of the new me. Surprisingly, I felt much better afterwards. I don't know how long these visions lasted, but my girlfriend was checking on me the whole time. Apparently, I was trying to explain my visions, but it came out as complete gibberish. This lasted all the way into the next day. On the day after, I was still pretty gone, but I wasn't hallucinating. This is when the purging started. I've always had a bit of a weak stomach, but I had never been sick like this in my life. I must have been vomiting for at least 2 hours. It was one of the most grueling experiences I've had. As you can imagine, there wasn't a lot to vomit up, but somehow, stuff kept coming up. I think it was mainly stomach acid, but I kind of viewed it as all the poison I had inside me. I know that's a little corny, but I truly believe that's what it was. At the end, I was very drained and very tired, but I couldn't sleep. My body was fucked, but my mind was like a circuit board buzzing with all this new space I had made in my brain. So, I suppose you want to know what's happened since. Well, here you go. I am now completely drug free and haven't had a single craving since I took Iboga. I feel much happier, much more awoke, and much more active. I feel like I have a new lease on life and that I really have a chance on turning my life around. Oddly, I have been sleeping less but have had more energy, and I have been walking the dogs, which I never did before. However, I must point out that my life isn't perfect. I didn't take Iboga, and then my life magically fell into place. Honestly, I haven't got a job, and I've got no money. I've had to really focus on wanting to change and keeping up the positivity. In summary, no, life isn't perfect, but it's a million times better than what it was. Microdosing for anxiety. Some background. At 34, I have been suffering anxiety/depression for nearly 20 years. As an adult, it's had a negative effect on my emotional connection and response in relationships, summarized by me basically ruining relationships by becoming untenable as a partner through shitty behavior, lack of trust, and showing sadness as anger. Due to some serious emotional trauma during a custody battle with my ex partner, I started looking at alternatives to the norm after the doctor tried to offer me Zoloft yet again. Anyway, 2.5 years later, I have experimented with DMT, self-sourced from local acacia, Syrian rue, blue lotus, etc., etc. I am not someone you would expect to be interested in hallucinogens, so please excuse my report if tedious or naive. Anyway, so after some reading, I managed to source some Iboga, TA powder, and also a pack of 35 300 milligram capsules. The idea being to microdose the capsules for a short while, then flood dose with a short maintenance period afterwards. I finally got a day to myself last week. My girlfriend was at work, and I did not have my son for 2 days. I was in a reasonably anxious mood, where I could feel that the slightest antagonism might kick off an argument with my partner, knowing full well it was on my own head that would cause it. I literally stomped down to the kitchen, took a pill, and chucked it back, saying a little prayer to myself that I might find some guidance. I add at this point, I have done a lot of reading and communicating with people who know what they are doing. I didn't unwittingly swallow this pill without expecting the side effects. Anyway, so I sat on my couch for an hour, playing PS4, and realized the day was getting away. So, went down to my garage gym to do my daily workout. I distinctly remember that about 90 minutes after the pill, I started feeling detached. I can't really explain it. You know when you stare at something and can't take your gaze away, but your brain is still 100% active/analytical? Well, that's what it felt like. In the middle of some press-ups, I noticed my visuals were altered. I want to say sheer clarity, but also the color of the yoga mat became super bright. I felt myself sink to my stomach and just stare at the mat, my face inches from it, and getting some real enjoyment from shifting perspective from the mat out to the open garage about 10 yards away, which at this point was open and the sun was out. It was like the outside was so bright, I couldn't possibly walk out to the sun. I pushed through my exercise, still 100% aware of what I was doing. I felt safe, but the detachment grew. It was almost like I was observing myself, my movements, while I was still completely in control. I went about my day in as best way as possible. When I am on Zoloft, I feel flat. With the Iboga, I did not feel flat, but removed from myself. When my girlfriend came home, we had some discussions that would normally have put me into an anxious mood, likely leading to an argument. I could acknowledge I didn't like the subject, and I can acknowledge which part of my body it came from, stomach, but it was like my heart, I know, sorry, was pulled away from it and wouldn't react. I was over the moon. I decided to wait until the next day and take another. Whilst the initial feelings of anxiety were nowhere near present, the feeling of detachment returned. I could still function, but this time I almost felt lazy, like I could move around, go to the shops, etc., but really would just rather sit and think. So that's what I did. Luckily, my partner is very supportive of my journey, so I went down for a walk around the park. I sat watching kids play soccer for nearly 2 hours, and I suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to see my son. I haven't cried in years. I mean years, but I could feel it welling up in me. I all of a sudden felt so proud of my son, even though he is just 2. I continued to walk and said hello to people, sat to pet dogs, etc., etc. Nothing trippy in the visuals at all, and really felt on top of the world. I still feel lazy, but my interactions were giving me so much pleasure. That second night, my dreams were insane. I can't really repeat them because they were very personal, but let's just say I was speaking to dead people. Not necessarily people I knew, just people that were obviously not of this world anymore, and it was a really pleasant experience. Since then, because I am back at work, I have been taking half, so 150 milligrams of the powder, every 3 to 4 days. I have certainly felt my own anxiety creeping, but generally, it's gone. For the first time in 7 months, I haven't argued with my girlfriend for weeks. Because I work away, it adds strain on our relationship, and this time, nothing. I am looking forward to getting back to the flood dose when I can find 48 hours where no one needs me. Iboga, a gateway to insight and healing. Last week I participated in an Iboga ceremony in Holland. It was quite something. Here's my trip report. I'm in Holland now, and on my way back from the Iboga retreat. It was quite out of this world, a profoundly meaningful experience, and the setting, guide, and other participants were quite amazing. Preparation. On the first day, we spent hours in a circle, sharing about our intentions, hopes, and motivations. Then we built a sweat lodge together and spent a total of maybe 3 hours in it. Before going in, we ingested the first 2 grams of Iboga. The guide was very competent, taking us through the stages of life in a symbolic way, allowing everyone to share their experiences, hopes for the coming Iboga ceremony, blockages, and hurts. It was quite beautiful, very connecting. After that, we had some time to relax and get a little to eat before settling on our mattresses in the ceremony room. I had chosen a mattress under a large, filled and blessed Terra statue and had a small Zaza with a relic from the late Tenga Rinpoche next to me. Beginning the ceremony, we ingested the very bitter Iboga powder on 2 teaspoons in 2 gram servings, one each hour for 9 consecutive hours, starting at around 10 p.m. Some took only 5 or 6. Despite only weighing in at 138 pounds, I firmly decided to get the full value for my money, so I took a total of 20 grams. That amounts to a medium Iboga trip. The experience was quite unlike any psychedelic I've tried, but it still seemed oddly familiar. Something like dreams and nightmares I used to have as a kid. Wasn't scary though, but I wouldn't recommend doing it without first trying LSD, psilocybin, or ayahuasca. The effects started to become pronounced after 3 spoons. My body went heavy. There were heavy tracers when I moved my head or looked at objects in motion. My brain's ability to categorize visual information into objects and understand their function in context was markedly decreased with each spoonful. The visionary phase. When I closed my eyes, I would see various objects and sceneries. Each time I opened and closed them again, the object would change. I saw trees and shrubs, organic structures. Sometimes it was though my consciousness was shining a spotlight into a room. At one point, I was in free camera mode over a beautiful tropical island. At other times, I would be staring directly into a wall, unable to see its boundaries. Later in the trip, I saw demons, skulls, and other imagery related to death and dying. It felt profoundly okay. The various visions carried little emotional weight and didn't seem to have any context or significance. There was no fear nor any attachment to them, just experience. I was lucid during the experience, feeling physically intoxicated but clear. When I needed to go to the bathroom, I was happy to have a guide there to help me. People around me were vomiting, but I didn't even feel sick. I attribute this to a good diet, fasting practice, and having a cleansing combo treatment 2 days in advance. Going inside, emotions returning. The visual part of the trip went on for a total of maybe 8 hours. It abruptly ended in the morning, about 6 hours after taking in the last spoonful. The trip went into a more intro and retrospective phase, where I was confronted with past actions, negative thought patterns, my role, and broken relationships. I experienced anguish and pain, sorrow and disconnection, all the negativity and hurt. I felt regret. It was uncomfortable, but very honest. There was no escaping reality, no ability to make up excuses or justify myself. My fellow psychonauts started going outside to sit in the garden, and when I felt I could stand, I joined them, sitting quietly, drinking tea, relaxing, and observing my mind. I spent some time in a hammock, the gentle motion of which was extremely soothing. The introspection went on with decreasing intensity for maybe the next 16 hours, giving rise to many resolutions about my future behavior, outwardly and inwardly. We shared our experiences in the afternoon and had soup. 24 hours after taking the Iboga, there were still tracers on all movement. Integration. After sharing, we had trance dancing, which was extremely liberating. We got in a circle, everyone wielding drums and shakers, and just started dancing around. I have never been able to relax and dance. I would always feel self conscious, until now. We danced, sweating profusely, singing and jumping around for an hour or so. Then we made a huge circle, and everyone was allowed to get in the middle and do their dance. It was an incredible feeling. When we ended the dance, we had a little piece of banana with chocolate and a tiny piece of iboga on it to end this part of the ceremony. We ended the day with laying down peacefully on our mattresses, and there was a beautiful ritual where the four guides wore masks, burned incense, spread perfume, and used bull roars. It was extremely soothing and calming. I slept like a baby, but woke up early to another 2-hour bout of painful introspection. Coming home. This was yesterday. We had breakfast, took care of the practical things, and went for a long walk in the woods. I still had tracers on everything, though not as pronounced. We ended the ceremony with a final round of sharing, and everyone said heartfelt goodbyes. There was a special connection bonded between us all, some more than others, of course. I'm in an apartment now, an hour from Amsterdam, with two of my fellow trippers. I feel absolutely fantastic, completely clear, and relaxed. My morning meditation was effortless. My focus is firmly planted in the now and in what is. I feel profoundly grateful. In 10 hours, I will be home in Copenhagen. I would like to extend a special thanks to our main guide, ES, the wonderful people at Degewaarderes, the Sacred Journey Retreat near Assen in southern Holland, who made this possible, and to the wonderful people who went on this journey with me. Microdose therapy. As a transpersonal hypnotherapist, I'm going on my own process of exploration and understanding for a while now. I have quite a few experiences, quite powerful and healing ceremonies with ayahuasca, mushrooms, LSD, transpersonal hypnosis, and meditation. I quit chemical drugs like MDMA, amphetamine, and research chemicals 1 year ago after more than 10 years of heavy use. Nonetheless, there were some behavioral and psychological issues I wanted to understand and transform. Habits that are not in alignment with my rational and emotional understanding of health, well-being, and conscious living. Nicotine and marijuana abuse, depressive thought structures, self-pity, lack of motivation, foggy thoughts. In the following report, I will quickly summarize the main aspects of the 4-week period, so that it will help and support other people while following this powerful path of insight and letting go of understanding, confrontation, and the development of alternate patterns and realities. I started taking the Iboga microdose every morning directly after waking up on an empty stomach with water. I would watch into a mirror using the affirmation, I am clear, I am conscious, I am free. I would use a very small dip of the Iboga extract to feel the taste and connect to its energy before swallowing a capsule with the morning dose. I used powdered root bark. I ate vegan most of the time. Week 1. I started with a small dose of a 250 milligram capsule to check for allergies and digestive problems, slight feelings of dizziness, and loosened thought structures. Everything seemed to go more easily and with slightly more motivation. Next day, I took 500 milligrams. A lot of dizziness, but not unpleasant. I was feeling energy going. My mood was enhanced and brightened, even though I had problems to really get connected to this substance. In between, I was feeling like an excited child starting to play with something new. There was this kind of childish motivation just to have fun with doing something. Depressive thought forms that I was confronted with before disappeared slightly. If they came, I was feeling them more distant and saw them coming from outside. Next days I went with 300 milligrams 2 times a day. The first week was really coming into contact. No big insights, just getting to know each other. There just came more motivation in doing something. It sometimes reminded me of small doses of amphetamine, but without the chemical tingling in the brain. Maybe due to dopamine interactions, but much more natural and easy. No rebound effects. Week 2. I take 400 milligrams 2 times a day. The effect is powerful. I am much more awake, very clear, and precise. I feel kinda depersonified. It's me doing things, but it's also me observing myself doing things. If a feeling is approaching, I can follow the track down to the origin. In comparison to other psychedelics, it's not as magic. It's more analytical, cold, sharp, defined. I realize a lot of my self destructing habits. Trying to quit smoking brings me forward to immense blockages, self pity, and resistance. After some days off, I start smoking again. It feels more wrong. It's much harder to betray myself with thoughts and excuses. Using trains in the underground is sometimes frightening. I can sense clearly it's like my third eye is opening. If I look to someone, they directly sense it and look into my eyes. The eye contact is much more piercing and direct. In the underground, I sometimes feel threatened. Too dark, too narrow. On the other hand, I realize my judgment towards other people in a confronting way. Seems that I am not the nice guy that is spiritually evolved like I thought I was before. On one occasion, I watch out the window at the train station, look into the face of a man, and cannot see it. It's just like an even flat mass without a nose, eyes, and mouth. It's a very strange feeling because it doesn't feel like a real hallucination. All the rest of the image is very stable. It's just his face, the man losing his face. I am shocked and fascinated by this experience. Very real. It's difficult to come to rest at nights. I feel much more energy. I can write my psychological journal very fast, and I also read much faster. The words I read are directly going into my mind without any hindering. I decide to read channeled information. Even that, some concepts are very far away from our scientific status quo. The concepts are brilliant, and I'm able to understand the far reaching conclusions of the material. While reading, worlds of understanding are created on a sidetrack of my mind. One time, I try to smoke some marijuana, but it feels totally wrong. The effect is unpleasant. I am glad to get away from it since starting the microdosing. Week 3. I take 400 milligrams 2 times a day. Have to work on the computer a lot this week. It does not fit together. I had the impulse to be much more outside, doing internal work or reading. Due to my job this week, I'm not able to. I have a lot of contact with unknown people. I am very aware of their energies. In business talks, I am on the top of the wave. My argumentation is strong, and people follow my words. In the evening, I am exhausted. Wrong work under the influence of this substance. Nonetheless, I realize my behavioral structures and patterns in contact with business relationships. I have some problems coming down at night. Dreams are weird, very intense, but also clearing, and I'm realizing a lot of crap between the lines. Symbols are strong, but come in totally new ways. It's less poetic or surreal and much denser than in my dreams before. In the morning, I tend to need more sleep. If I get it, I am perfectly energized. If I have to stand up with only 5 hours sleep, I am only functioning without much content in it, but I am still more precise. One evening, I am getting really frustrated about quitting smoking. I realize that as long as I believe I can't control this behavior, I will not control any behavior. So I quit. First days, kinda disciplined aggressiveness. Then, it's becoming better. I feel like coming back to control my thoughts. There is a strong voice pushing me to take just one more cigarette, but I can work with that ego state and resolve it with therapeutic strategies. It's like being my own therapist in a very clear and mental way, without hindering emotional boundaries. If there are no sounds in my surrounding, it's like hearing a loud silence. It can be annoying sometimes while wanting to sleep. On one occasion, I go to my office and have to cross a street, seeing the houses I have to go to. After crossing, I suddenly realize that I walked totally wrong. Even then, I checked the way before, and I was going the right way, but now I was on the corner. Super weird feeling. I realized that feeling safe with our senses and mind is an absolute illusion. I would swear that I was going the right way. Anyway, powerful example of the illusion of space and time are the false safety of thinking we know what's going on. Week 4. I'm taking doses of 400 milligrams to 500 milligrams in the morning and 300 milligrams to 400 milligrams in the afternoon. Right now, I am totally in the process of recognizing thought patterns, misconceptions, and conclusions. I see myself as clear as never before. I can go back to situations that imprinted certain kind of coping strategies and can heal and let go of inappropriate structures. I am totally immersed and absorbed in that process and have less focus on my surroundings and persons, e.g., family and friends. Dreams are totally different than any time before. Very clear, very dense, very weird, but always relieving. From time to time, very bitter and also frightening. I have problems to go into meditation. My mind is too active. Have problems to connect to certain frequencies or states of mind, but get massive input about my personality structure. Working with clients in therapy is powerful. It's like I open the door and see their problems without them even talking to me. While working with them, my first impressions are nearly 90% right. It's like I'm able to read between the lines without interpreting false presumptions and prejudices. It feels like I'm very sensitive to energy structures, thought forms, and emotional patterns. I do some of the best sessions with them in my whole career. While working, I see complexes of their psycho-emotional structures as visual compositions. Sometimes my physical view is a little bit distracted, like having a 1 millisecond offset while moving my head. So far, there is less physical contact with my girlfriend. She is also doing the microdosing with a much lower dose without having these strong benefits of understanding herself in detail. Maybe this is also connected to not being psychologically trained as I am. She is doing a lot of art and it helps her. To close the microdose period, I decided to take a larger dose at the end of the week. Last day, 800 milligrams in the morning, 500 milligrams 2 hours later, 400 milligrams in the afternoon. I take it into my mouth, letting it sit there for some minutes, and then swallow. Every sound is very loud. With eyes closed, it's like I'm flying from topic to topic. I cannot control that process. Some thoughts are very dense and heavy. I realize family patterns, relationship patterns, life patterns. There's a huge understanding without judgment. Some areas feel unpleasant, but I know I have to go through it. At a certain point, it's like I'm breaking my head or my mind. I'm becoming very dizzy. Then I suddenly realize that thinking does not have to be heavy and difficult. Directly, I start to feel better. I regress back to situations as a child where I came to the conclusions that thinking hurts. I open my eyes and feel free. In the afternoon, I get a heavy headache, which I nearly never have. I go to sleep. Next morning, I wake up like awakening out of 100-year-long sleep. Right now, I feel the effects becoming less. My mind is becoming fuzzier again. Anyway, I think it was tremendous and marvelous inner work has happened here. From a therapeutic point of view, this substance is absolutely powerful for recreating behavioral and emotional patterns and opening up for energetic realities beside our so-called scientific worldviews. In combination with psychotherapy, it could be very helpful for a lot of neurotic and self-destructive patterns. In low doses, it's absolutely manageable with real life. Even then, it's good to take some time off. I am less depressed, more motivated and active, clearer, and much more focused in general. Would do again with more free time after a 6 to 10 month pause.
Test dose for personal growth. I bought some Ibogaine TA total extract about 2 to 3 weeks ago and got it in the mail yesterday. My total ingestion amount, according to the provider, should have been 1 gram hydrochloride followed up with 2.4 grams TA. I only went with 1 gram TA for cost reasons, and more than a gram just seems like way too much. My reason for taking the drug was to get rid of my social anxiety and fears. I drink to relax in social situations and would rather not have to. I just thought doing the drug would help uproot the cause of my anxiety and get rid of it. I knew the risk of death, so I just tried rationalizing it as if life and death doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Plus, I was trying not to be paranoid during the event. Also, I didn't have a sitter. A few times I panicked, but it only lasted only a few seconds each time. If I started to panic, I would do the Sedona method, a method of letting feelings go and just allow whatever I was afraid of to happen. I took it with yogurt, and man, that shit was nasty. I ate it and got under the covers. It took about 15 to 30 minutes to kick in. First, I heard a low buzzing in my ears. It sounded like 2 or 3 dragonflies or model airplanes were circling my head. My imagination was going nuts. I was talking to myself like, "It's cool, calm down, it's alright," and it seemed like another person was saying it rather than me. I kept thinking, "Oh no, I'm tripping. This is probably not good." My imagination was pretty vivid, but my thoughts were fast and there wasn't much story to what was going on in my head. I saw designs if I really looked when my eyes were closed. I'd start to see something really cool, but then I would lose it. I saw different people, but there wasn't really any interaction. I saw a lot of black people, and at one point I said to myself, "What's with all these black people?" And a black girl who I didn't notice before heard me and ran off giggling to tell her friend. I've read other trips of people seeing Africans, so maybe that's why I did too. I'd say for about an hour, I had some pretty cool things to look at, but after that, it was more of a body high. Not a very fun high though, and I maybe had a more vivid imagination. After the first few hours, I was exhausted and the trip was irritable. I kept looking at the clock, wondering, is it over yet? Luckily, I didn't throw up, but I had to get up like 3 times to pee when I was the most inebriated. That was not fun. Also, whenever I laid down or switched positions, I had to cuddle a pillow. It actually felt like cuddling with someone though, and it really comforted me. This morning was horrible. I just felt dirty and sick. As of right now, I've got about 3 hours before I pass the 24-hour mark of taking the drug, and I'm finally starting to feel normal. My head is still dizzy, and I finally stopped hearing the buzzing about an hour ago. There was no way I'd want to do the full dose. I've read before that it can be 10 to 36 hours. I thought, 24, 36 hours? For some reason, I just didn't think that was very long, or I thought it would go quick, or at least be really fun and worth it. But no, it's so fucking long to do nothing. And the entire day, I've been trying to get my head back on straight and sober up. Also, nothing groundbreaking came to me during the trip. I thought of dead family members and felt sad about it. I think maybe my subconscious did a small defrag. I know this wasn't the full dose, so maybe that's why nothing major was revealed to me. I'd say the trip was a sad and slightly paranoid one. All in all, I cannot wait until I feel better and probably won't ever do this again. I don't feel cleansed or detoxed. I feel like I'm at home sick. Maybe it will get better in a few hours. I wrote that 2 weeks ago. The next day I felt so much better. I didn't realize it at the time, but I still pretty much had the drug working in my system. For the next week I was feeling really good and confident. Some of my anxiety and irrational fears had gone away and I felt more at peace. I ended up drinking 2 times since taking the drug. I'm not beating myself up for drinking, but the hangovers have been really depressing and make me want to change my lifestyle. Hangovers are not fun, and I can see myself giving up drinking in the near future. Overall, I'm glad I took it, and there has been a small change in me, but nothing major. I'm still anxious about some things. If I take the full dose, I'm definitely doing it with a sitter, and it won't be for a while.
Saved from addiction. Background. This past Friday, I initiated myself into the Iboga tribe with a dose of 800 mg pure ibogaine, with a trusted friend watching over me to make sure that nothing bad happened. The purpose? To rid myself of a vicious addiction to alcohol and stimulants and to stabilize a mood that fluctuated between suicide and euphoria every 10 minutes. Preparation. kept myself sober for 48 hours prior to taking the Ibogaine, took these 2 days off work to calm my mind, walked around in the woods of Toronto Island the day of the experience, and meditated on my intent to free myself from substance abuse and to learn to enjoy the natural highs in life that I had never before been able to appreciate. I prepared myself for death in case the Ibogaine decided to kill me, but I had extensively researched the subject and thought it would be quite likely survivable. The experience. I dissolved the Ibogaine in water and drank it slowly. Took some gravel and a tiny amount of marijuana to ward off nausea. The Ibogaine hit swiftly, first with an MDMA-like euphoria and mushroom-style visual hallucinations, closed-eye fractals. I remember at about the half-hour point exclaiming, "Hey, this is fun. I'm going to get high and detox at the same time." Then it really hit me. The whole room started vibrating with a bizarre strobe light effect. It was like plugging your monitor into a 50 Hz European outlet and having it go all funky. I started to get dizzy and retired to the darkened bedroom put aside for this purpose. I lay down and my whole body started shaking and twitching. It felt like being electrocuted, and I was convinced that I was going to die. Then I felt myself rocketing upwards, quite unnerving, but because I had read about this in other people's reports, I began to relax. I closed my eyes and I was floating in space past various orbs, some with dancing gods and goddesses, others with video screens replaying various scenes from my life. A beautiful naked woman came towards me. I welcomed her, but as she approached, beckoning me, I saw that she was covered in sores and grotesque scars. I sent her away. I knew that she represented the seductive temptation of alcohol and drugs, and I would not have it. Then I came face to face with a young black man. He said he was the spirit of the Iboga plant. I asked him if he would rid me of my addictions. He said he would. I started shaking violently and asked if I was going to die. He said no. I became nauseous and begged him not to make me vomit. He winked at me and said, "We'll see," and disappeared. I saw the inside of my skull, dim and gray. Then with a tremendous rush, it started to light up from bottom to top. My vision zoomed in to 4 color-coded tubes. I knew that these were receptors for different neurotransmitters. They were filled with garbage. As the top of my skull finally lit up, a stream of little roto-rooter-like nanobots went into the receptors and cleaned them out. Then some other nanobots filled each of them up with a cement-like material to varying levels. This was the Ibogaine working to stabilize my brain chemistry to fix my addictions and make me happier. With that, the vision stopped abruptly, as did the shaking, the nausea, and the inability to move properly. I got up and went to the bathroom without assistance. Though it felt like days, it had only been 4 hours. Unfortunately, at this point, my friends, realizing that I was out of any potential danger, started to make noise and turn on lights. This irritated the fuck out of me, as I was having a bunch of lucid dreams that were being interrupted. I took a cab home, lay down in my own bed, and proceeded to dream/think about living a sober life. 12 hours after ingesting the Ibogaine, I got out of bed. I went over to my parents' house next door. They were very relieved that I had not died, and we had discussed addiction recovery for a bit. For the next 12 hours, I lay in bed half dreaming, got up, read a book, went back to bed, etc. My brain felt extremely slow and hollow, like part of it was sleeping, yet I was awake. Though I was pleased to note that my depression seemed gone, as did my craving for a drink, I was worried that I had permanently damaged my brain. At the end of the second 12-hour period, 24 hours post-ingestion, I fell asleep for an hour. When I woke up, whatever brain symptoms had been offline before suddenly came back to life in blazing color. I felt happy, centered, and alive. I took a walk outside and was able to appreciate the smell of the spring air. It gave me more euphoria than any drug ever had. That night, I slept very little, which was annoying, but I felt really good, and I expected this insomnia. The day after, which was today, was amazing. I went to the gym and actually enjoyed working out, something I had previously stopped doing in favor of
drunkenness. I cleaned my apartment and bought some healthy groceries. Then I met up with my ex-girlfriend for lunch. Now, whenever I hang out with her, we get into some kind of argument and I get upset. Today was no exception, the difference being that I was able to tell my brain to just accept the breakup and be happy being her friend, and so was I. And tonight I went to a movie with another friend and really enjoyed the sober pleasure of a good movie for the first time in years. Conclusion: used with proper intent, Iboga or ibogaine is a lifesaver. May your lives be filled with light.